right, guys, morning. Uh, let's talk about thermals for a minute. Now, I know that's a contradiction. When you talk about thermals, it always takes more than a minute. But let's just explain the basics about thermals. Now, first off, I'm no expert. I'm learning every year more and more about them. Pretty much the bottom line, what thermals are, it's an effect created from the heating and cooling, of the air around you. Whenever that air warms up, when the sun comes out and starts hitting the floor of the woods, that'll cause an updraft. You'll notice that the dust particles, anything you see in the air, how they kind of stick around in the air and they float and almost draft up. In the evenings, whenever things are cooling down, especially you guys that hunt them ridges. I know I like hunting them. That'll cause that air to draft down, and it can draft down. It can be your enemy. It can be drafting down off that hillside and swirling on you. So those are some things you got to watch. Probably the best example I can give you is I know we've all been sitting around waiting for it to get dark so we can hit the river, go gigging. You'll be sitting on the gravel bar, and you'll notice, once the sun gets down below the trees and it starts to get shady, you'll feel that coolness of the river pushing out there on you. And what that is, that coolness off that water is actually pushing a draft. It's pushing that cool air off through that shade, and it's kind of seeping out your way, and you'll feel a dramatic change in the temperature right there on the gravel bar pretty quick. It's most time whenever you're looking for that zip-up hoodie you brought. That's a pretty good example of how a thermal works. I will say that different stands thermals affect them differently. I've got one stand, I don't like to get 20-25 feet high. You get any higher than 25 feet, I learned the hard way that you stand a real good chance of just getting one lung from that angle. A lot of guys in climbers, it's 40-50 foot up, and I used to be that way too until I figured out it was costing me more than it was helping me. But I do have a stand or two. I know I've got one for sure. There's just something about it. If it gets calm, it don't matter if I've got the right wind or not. If it gets calm, there's a different kind of draft in it. For a long time, I thought that the wind was swirling on me. At certain times, I figured out it was every time I was sitting in that tree. And what was happening is there's a creek out in front of me, and it's kind of a downhill slope. And I'm not sure, if the creek has as much to do with it as just a downhill. I don't really know. But if it gets calm right there in the evenings and it starts cooling off, I've noticed a few of them out there get a little nervous out in front of me. It's supposed to be the wind in my face, but something was drawing it out that way. I then found out, I moved my stand a little higher up and tried, and it wasn't 8-10 foot higher, and I noticed a dramatic difference. I noticed a difference in just the overall draft from the whole time I'm sitting there. From the time I got it, it was always in my face and everything was better, and I know I don't get busted. I can use it mostly as an observation stand, but don't just look at that wind and think that you're fine. There's other variables in there that can get you busted. Thermals is not something you're going to understand overnight. Like I said, I'm still learning about them myself. I don't think that just puffing a little dust and watching which direction it goes. Sometimes you're sitting there, and when it's totally calm and you've got a deer out in front of you a little ways and he stops and he's looking, you're thinking there's no way he's getting my wind. When he leaves and you hit your dust or your wind indicator, whatever it is that you're carrying, and you see which direction it goes, you're thinking there's no way he got my wind. But it may just be subtle enough, and there may just be a stream lower. Try puffing that stuff above your head, down by your feet, see what it does there. Myself, I like to get a little piece of fuzz, something that'll stay in the air longer, and let it go where I'm at and watch it. And that usually something that light that'll stay in the air. It works better than dust, and you can see exactly what direction that your scent is being carried. And you can almost watch, if you get a deer coming around that side of you, you can pick that line out where you drop that and watch. And as soon as he gets in that line, as soon as he gets in your current, no matter how perfect you think you've done everything, when he hits that, he may not exactly freak out, but he knows something's up. You'll see him stop and he'll take a look around. He may just look in your direction, lick his nose, flick his tail and go on, but he'll do something. I mean, he knows something's up. So this time of year, with it being as warm as it is, it's real easy to let those currents fool you. It's supposed to be a south wind, and it goes getting dark, especially you guys that hunt along the river. That that thermal starts pushing out that other way, and you feel that cold air coming off that river, well, it's pushing your scent with it. That may be something you want to keep in mind. I've got a spot down below Big Springs I hunt quite a bit that it's pretty high up above, but you'll still feel that coolness of the river once the shade goes down. It's pretty amazing. I've ended up over the years fine-tuning my spot to where I stay back off of it, and I try to catch them. There's a little path that they go down and water by. I try to catch them going to that path, and it's actually helped me. I've found 3 or 4 trails that go into the one main trail, and I usually sit up on the far side of that. Another thing that might help you, all my stands that I hunt on ridges anymore, we talked about bedding bucks yesterday, and I kind of used I don't know what the way they think a little bit. I like to find the tightest spot on a ridge or a flat and put my stand in that shallow spot, in that thin spot where they have to be close to one another, where it kind of funnels them closer to you for the shot. And I get it off the side of that hill to where my scent carries over the top of their head if they get too close behind me, and that seems to help. So anyway, we'll talk about thermals some more this season, and Mark, he'll be doing some videos here shortly, so he's got a lot of good information, and just be watching. So season's in, fun times are starting. Real quick, I just wanted to add a little more to that. Like I said in the beginning, thermals is not just a
Fuel truck to Monroe gang.
it's not just a quick subject you can talk about. I got to thinking, a couple other things popped up. It's not just water that's going to create thermals. I mean, thermals are everywhere, and they're different everywhere. Like I said, whenever it's warming up, it can cause that wind to travel uphill. Whenever it's cooling off, it can cause it to travel downhill. And it doesn't matter where you are. When you're in the woods before daylight, your scent might not be carrying very far when it's nice and cool. When that sun starts hitting it, heating everything up, that may cause your scent to travel even further across the woods. It may even have a difference in the direction it's traveling. It also causes a draft from the top of the hill, and then there's another draft that usually comes from those bottoms, and somewhere around the crest of that hill is where they meet. Right where they meet, that's usually a pretty good spot to set a stand, because we're not the only thing in the woods that's figured out that that's a pretty good spot for catching a whiff of something. So I can promise you, they'll skirt those sides of those hills, and that's exactly why. But thermals are just something you're gonna have to experience and pay attention to and start to understand before it makes sense to you. You can read and talk and listen to everybody talk about them all you want, but until you get busted by them a couple times. If you got a stand you're sitting, and you say you can't sit there in the evenings because every evening the wind starts swirling, well, it ain't the wind swirling, and that there's a reason for all that happening. Get in there and move your stand around a few places. If you're gonna be chasing big bucks, you're gonna run a few off. You're not gonna kill every one of them. I'm just gonna tell you right now, if you're not running them off, you're not getting aggressive enough to kill them. So especially you start getting in there close to where they bed, and first couple times in there, you're not exactly gonna know what he's doing until you see him. So keep that in mind. Thermals will probably get you busted more in the wind, but it's just a chance you're gonna have to take if you're gonna get in there on him. So try to do your best guessing and see what you think your best drafts are gonna be. Just remember to put that stand. I'll do a video on stand placement. That's probably one of my biggest things. Put that stand at your shortest distance across the top of that flat. That's a lot of times where he'll cross at. A lot of times if he does come up on top, that'll usually be where it's at. So either way, just wanted to add that to it, and thank y'all for listening. Any questions, hit me up, and we'll talk to you after a while.